Today we're going to talk about three different things. One of them is how Arnold Schwarzenegger used the brand Mr. Olympia to jumpstart his career. Two, we're going to talk about who the current Joe Weider is. And three, what would happen to the Mr. Olympia brand if Danny Garcia and Dwayne Johnson were to take over the brand. So let's get right into it. The first thing I want to ask you is the following. Here's what the question is. Ready? Would Arnold Schwarzenegger, with this King Kong personality who is in Hollywood, movie star, marries a Kennedy, is worth a few $100 million, would he be who he is today without the brand of Mr. Olympia and him winning over Joe Weider? Would he become the same person that he is today? Your answer may be, there's no way in the world. He won Mr. Olympia, then everybody said, look at this guy's physique. Then Joe Weider put him into Hollywood and he became a star, right? So let's go and look at his rise to the top and what formula he used. Very simple. First he comes to the U.S. Then he wins Mr. Olympia. Then he becomes a face of bodybuilding. Then he wins over Joe Weider. This is why it's written here, who replaced Joe Weider. He wins over Joe Weider. Joe Weider's a magnetic personality, big personality, a visionary, charming, charismatic. Hollywood, all the stars in Hollywood wanted to become bodybuilders and have nice physique. And Steve Reeves, and look at the physique he had. And oh my gosh, I won over Joe Weider. The moment Arnold won over Joe Weider, Joe all of a sudden opened up his contacts to him. So Arnold, through Joe's contact, said, I'm going to go into his contacts in Hollywood and see what I can do. So he kept working his ass off. He became a good Mr. Olympia citizen. Hey, Joe Weider, Mr. Olympia is great. I'm so proud to represent the brand. Then he started doing movies. Then he married a Kennedy. Then he starts businesses. Then he goes into politics. He makes hundreds of millions of dollars and will leave a massive legacy behind, not just in the bodybuilding world, but period, a massive legacy behind in U.S., in bodybuilding, in Hollywood, in politics. He's going to be remembered hundreds of years from now, not right? That's the formula that Arnold used. Now, what is today's formula? Number one, build a massive social media brand. Now, keep this in mind. Any of these things I'm talking about, this doesn't apply to everybody. This applies if you have a physique, if you're willing to pay the price, if you're willing to go through the things you need to do to win Mr. Olympia, at least be one of those guys that wants to compete. Is it worth you putting your body through what you need to put through to win a Mr. Olympia? So number one, build your social media following. I got 1.2 million followers on Instagram. I got 3 million followers on Facebook. You got a great physique, people are following you. Number two, come to the States and win Mr. Olympia. If you win once, they'll say, well, you got to win a few more. They'll win 3 more. If you win 4, they'll say, well, you got to win 4 more. Then go win 4 more. Then you marry a Jones. You don't marry a Kennedy, right? Then contacts. Whose contacts do you buy into? Who is today's Joe Weider? Who is really building their brand where they are connected to Hollywood? So where are you going to go into? Do you have to do all the work yourself? He didn't do all the work himself. He paid a price, but he got close to this guy. Remember, the Joe Weider of Mr. Olympia in basketball would be a guy like Jerry Buss. Magic Johnson won his contacts, then he went in. There's a very big factor here that a lot of people don't think about. So who is that Joe Weider today? So there is no contacts. Then what do? Maybe you start a supplement company, right? And starting a supplement company, so many people have started, and it's not like the ingredients are massively different, like you found something special, but you white label a brand and you have a loyal following, and you start a supplement company, then you start doing some surgeries, maybe to your bones, maybe to your knees, because you've done so much squats, maybe to your stomach, maybe all of these surgeries that you're doing to try to recover from. Then you only leave a legacy behind in the bodybuilding world. So what ends up happening is they become expensive, glorified trainers, training other people that want to be Mr. Olympians to follow this formula, and they start a podcast. Does that sound like a formula you want to put your body through and to follow? Are you okay with this, right? Now, a lot of people watching this, they're going to say, well, Pat, Arnold wanted to go into bodybuilding, Hollywood. Arnold wanted to do that. There's a lot of people that wanted to follow that formula, but you need a contact. You need to win over a person like this. Yet this is very, very critical, right? Let's continue. Okay, so now, say Mr. Olympia brand is watching this, and they're saying, I hope nobody else sees this, because what if other bodybuilders watch this? What if guys that are competing for Mr. Olympia watch this? Well, here's an alternative. What if this were to happen? What if Dwayne Johnson and Danny Garcia were to take over Mr. Olympia? What if they were? What if they took over Mr. Olympia? And they both love bodybuilding. There's a passion for it. It's not a business. It's a passion, then a business, not a business to just make money and let me take over for Weider. There's nothing worse than somebody replacing where the passion isn't at the level of the guy that started it. There's got to be a passion for the vision. Danny Garcia just competed, and you guys know Dwayne Johnson loves bodybuilding. He takes care of his physique. He's one of the only guys in Hollywood outside of Arnold that got so big, and he had a physique, and people said, you can't be a major Hollywood celebrity being that big. There just isn't enough roles for you. Two guys proved everybody wrong. One is this guy, and one is The Rock. So say today they buy the brand. Here's what it will look like. Number one, you still build your social media following. Number two, you still win Mr. Olympia. Number three, you win over Rock and Danny by becoming a what? A good citizen. Then you go into their contacts, similar over here. You know what their contacts are? Worldwide and widespread into anything you want. Money, business, finance, US, China, Hollywood, shoes, sports, athletic wear. What do you want? It's everywhere, right? Then you marry whoever you want to marry because you're in their, if you want to get married, you marry whoever you want to marry. Movies. Not only do you get into possible movies, if you have the personality, which a lot of these guys do, you get into movies. Then if you get into movies, you don't just get into the US market because Rock's been able to tap into the US market and worldwide market and China market. Then outside of that, what do? Not just start a supplement company. For what? Why do I need to start a supplement company? You can start it if you want to. That's great. But even bigger than that, guess what you do? You start signing contracts and deals with Under Armour. Can you imagine a bodybuilder signing contracts with Under Armour outside of just the typical things that bodybuilders sign up with? What if a first bodybuilder signed a major contract with Nike or Under Armour? Think about that. And these guys could do it. You mean to tell me Under Armour now goes into the bodybuilding world because they brought so much exposure to them worldwide? Do you know how big the bodybuilding brand is worldwide? But they need better people to run it. So let's continue with this. Then you don't make 10 millions because Arnold made hundreds of millions. If your run rate's going to be 60 years, 50 years, 40 years, you have the potential to make billions, not millions, billions, because it's that big. You better believe The Rock at this pace is going to be a billionaire. This guy's not going to be worth a few hundred million. He's on track to being a billionaire, not a millionaire, right? Then outside of it, you get access to the best doctors because that's the best doctors they have. And then you go into politics if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to. And last but not least, you don't just leave a legacy in the bodybuilding world. You don't just leave a massive legacy in the US. You leave a massive legacy worldwide because their brand is worldwide. So now if you're watching this, somebody says, well, I just don't think the Mr. Olympia brand can ever get that big. I agree because I think there's a few things that need to take place. Let me explain to what I think needs to happen. You can agree or disagree, but in recent sit-downs with Phil Heath, with Dorian Yates, and with Brandon Curry. Brandon Curry is a 2019 champion. You know, Dorian Yates is a 6-time, and Phil Heath is a 7-time. I brought up one of the biggest challenges that I think Mr. Olympia brand is facing, and here's what it is. It's still uncomfortable to say bodybuilders use PED or all that other stuff, right? One of the best things, if they could take a play out of the playbook of what Rogan did, there used to be a time 30 years ago where smoking marijuana was like, oh, you know, it's bad, it's this, it's that. It's like, listen, I don't consume myself. I don't smoke weed. I don't take CBD. I don't take I don't take anything myself. But Rogan, who's a smart guy, he's a very smart guy. He's not just a guy that's a personality guy. He's a very smart guy. He brings the brand and brings attention to saying, listen, let's do some study. Let's do some research. Let's start actually looking into it. And outside of that, guess what? If I want to put it in my body as a libertarian, let me do it. It's not your business. I want to put it through my body to the point where Ron Paul and other politicians, Republicans, Democrats, Independents said, just makes sense. Let them do what they want to do. So if Mr. Olympia wanted to go the complete other route, what I'm talking mainstream type of route, is they got to come out and say, stop saying we just use creatine and supplements and protein. Listen, we all know you can't look like Hercules by just eating creatine and proper supplements and protein and amino acids. You got to put some stuff through your body. But so what? People are talking about TRT nowadays like TRT is nothing. You didn't talk about TRT 25 years ago. Today it's different. They call it, you know, anti-aging type of stuff. Right now, again, I'm not endorsing any of this stuff. All I'm saying to you is, for this brand to grow, the Mr. Olympia brand to grow, at this pace, it's going to die because it's a lot easier for me to just have a big social media following, get sponsorships for the amount of following I have, then go to Kuwait and put all this stuff through my body, then have to do surgery on my knees, my back, and then I have the gut and I have all this other stuff. I don't want to deal with that. I'll just make $600,000 on sponsorships, then have to go through this route. But in order for it to work, you got two enemies. One, you got to address the steroid and PD epidemic. You have to talk about that. And it has to be transparent. And number two, you need a Joe Weider, because you're missing that Joe Weider. If you have the Joe Weider, and if you've addressed the other issue, now somebody could say, you know what, let's find out a little bit more. Maybe it's not going to be NBC, maybe it's not going to be some of that, but maybe it's going to be shown Mr. Olympia on HBO. Maybe it's going to be shown on some of those other channels. And maybe, you know, Mr. Olympia is going to be on Netflix. If somebody like him does it, it could happen. Then it gives more exposure to those competing, and then the prize goes up to millions. Look, Conor started off UFC, they were paying fighters $5,000, $10,000, $2,500, $10,000, $20,000. Then Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor come, the brand explodes. Now guys are getting paid real money to fight. Can you imagine if this happens? Then bodybuilders who are putting their body through what they're putting through, now you can actually start making $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million per year. Now you can explain and say, this is why I do what I do with bodybuilding, and this is why it's worth it. Or else, this Mr. Olympia brand that the visionary, the charismatic, the incredible Joe Weider started many, many years ago will one day very soon become irrelevant if it goes the way it's going today. If you agree or disagree, comment below, send me a direct tweet at Patrick Bet-David. I will respond. You got two other videos I want you to watch. One is with Brandon Curry. We got into this topic just a couple weeks ago. He was a little bit uncomfortable, but we did go into it. He's a 2019 Mr. Olympia, and if you want to go a little bit deeper as well, go watch my interview with Dorian Yates. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, do so. This is not a bodybuilding channel. This is the #1 channel on YouTube for entrepreneurs. I just enjoy this industry of bodybuilding, and that's why I want to do this video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.